Welcome to Pseudo-Historical Debunkers, where we're going to be debunking all your favorite pseudo-historical topics. Today's topic is the moon landing. So generally speaking, most people do believe in the moon landing. However, there are still plenty of people who don't believe that Americans made it to the moon in 1969. James Oberg, an expert on space travel and its history, estimates that there may be between 10 to 25 million people in the United States alone who at least have doubts that NASA sent men to the moon. So I want to see how many people at my school believe in the moon landing, and it turns out most of them do. So let's roll the clip. So do you believe in the moon landing? Do I believe in the moon landing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? I don't know what that is.
So like Americans landed on the moon.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you also believe
Yes.
in that?
Yes. Yes. Sure.
Yes. Yes. In the moon landing?
Do you believe that we landed on the moon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Moon landing? Yeah, why not?
Yes. Of course. Yeah.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. While it's great that so many people in my school do believe in the moon landing, there are a few dissenters who don't believe that Americans landed on the moon. And here's their interview and some of the reasons that they gave.
No,
Wait, can I ask why?
because the flag waved.
No.
No. Okay, that's fine. Can I ask why?
It's like a conspiracy theory. Like, okay, so there's a movie that I had to watch for school, and I feel like the timing of everything was just like too much. Like with like the whole thing, everything that like led up to it, I just feel like it just didn't actually happen. Like it has happened,
Okay.
but like not now, not
Like,
when it
not
did.
what they said it did. So
Yeah.
not in 1969.
Is totally fake.
Why don't you believe in the moon landing?
When you look in the background, the flag is waving, right? All right. There's like reduced gravity on the moon. Therefore, there would not be a wind current. Therefore, it was shot in a studio as a means of getting a leg up in the Cold War against the Soviet Union.
Okay.
Hence why the moon landing isn't real.
So those you've just seen are what we consider moon landing hoaxers, and they do bring up some interesting points. Furthermore, the reasons for disbelief are similar to other moon landing hoaxers. So in this video, I'm going to be looking specifically at the photographs taken by the astronauts during their moon landing mission and address the conspiracy theories surrounding these photos. The first one, which you saw brought up in an earlier clip, is that the flag waves, which moon landing hoaxers see as proof that the moon landing isn't real, and that it was most likely filmed in a studio, because if there's no air on the moon, how can the flag possibly wave? The second theory related to the photographs is that the shadows aren't parallel, which hoaxers see as further confirmation that the moon landing was filmed in a studio, and that the differences in shadows are proof that there were other sources of light, such as spotlights, used during the filming. So as you can see, there's shadow here, shadow here. So the third and final theory that we'll be discussing is that there are no stars in any of the pictures taken during the moon landing. So as you can see, no stars in the background. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take each hoaxer theory and debunk it by using explanation, and then we're also going to do some quick little experiments that you can do at home by yourself. So let's get started. So before we begin, I just want to do a quick little disclaimer. So I'm a college student. This video is for a project in my pseudo-historical class. Hello. So no, I don't have a PhD in astronomy. I'm not an astrophysicist, but what I do have is some credible scholarship by people who are astrophysicists and who have studied astronomy. So before we begin, I'm going to tell you exactly what my sources are, so if you want to do some further research, or if you just want to verify that what I'm saying is true and factual, you can. So the first source that I've been looking at is called Bad Astronomy. Misconceptions and Misuses revealed by from Astrology to the Moon Landing Hoax, and by Philip Plait. And Philip Plait, if you do a quick Google search, you can see that he got a PhD in astronomy, and he has worked on projects such as the COBE satellite, C-O-B-E satellite, and he was also part of the NASA Hubble Space Telescope team. So he's very qualified to talk about space and the moon landing and the physics behind it. So the next source that I've been looking at is called The Moon Hoax, Conspiracy Theories on Trial, and it's by Thomas Eversberg. And Eversberg is an astrophysicist by training. He works for the German Space Agency, and he specializes in the optical instrumentation of telescopes. So again, very qualified, knows what he's talking about, great source to use, so look those up if you want further research or you want to just verify what I'm saying. So that's my disclaimer. So now, let's get started. Okay, so the first theory we're going to be addressing is that the flag waves. So the explanation for this is actually really simple. The flag doesn't wave at all. Yes, in this photograph, it kind of does look like the flag is waving. But if you'll notice, it almost looks like right here and here, it's more creased, and it's a point instead of being a wavy shape like this. So that's actually because NASA knew that there wasn't going to be any air on the moon to make the flag blow. So what they did instead is they ran a pole right across the top. And actually, this is a better picture, it's a little more clear. So there you can see there's a pole that goes straight across the top there. And then they put some wire in to keep it relatively flat. So here and here. But it bunched slightly, which is why it appears to be waving in the pictures. So you might be thinking, but I've seen the footage and the flag moves. Well, yes, it does move, but only when the astronauts have moved it. And if you watch the footage closely, the flag only moves when the astronauts are touching it or right after they've touched it. And the right after part, if you're thinking, how can it move after they've touched it, is because they used a lightweight aluminum that's going to vibrate a little bit even after there's no one touching it. So for example, if I take this metal coat hanger and I drop it on this table, like so, as you can see, this part's still vibrating even though I'm not touching it. Okay, so now just for fun, we're going to make our own little version of the flag, and we're going to put it on a little pole and put some wire behind it so you can kind of see how it would have been when the astronauts did it. So, I don't have a flag, so instead we're going to take this dish towel, which is, about the size of a small flag. I'm going to take some lovely tin foil to make our pole. So as you can see, if they had just hung it up on whatever, it would have done this the same way it would have done on Earth. So what they needed to do was just put something along the top like this and fold it over. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your tin foil, measure it out to about the size of your flag, like so. You're going to rip it off. I'm just going to roll it to a small little kind of cone or a cylinder. So when you're done rolling, you should have a piece of tinfoil that looks kind of like this. And then you're going to take your makeshift flag and you're just going to stick it behind like so. And then you're just going to fold the top over it like this. Ta-da! Okay, and now we're going to grab our trusty masking tape. I'm just going to tape it, it's fine, it doesn't really matter. Now this is not what the astronauts did. They probably had a little sewn in slit up here to make it stay. But I'm not going to sew my dish towel because I need that. So instead we're just going to do this. And I taped it there. And I'm also going to tape it on the other edge. So now I can let go and it stays up like that. So now the second thing the astronauts did was they wanted it to lay flat like this. Because they didn't want it to like crease up or be weird, whatever. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to take some wire, and if you don't have wire like I didn't, what you can do instead, take a coat hanger, see it used to be a coat hanger, and you just unhook it. It's pretty easy, and then it can bend like this, and you can bend it however you want, and you have your wire. So we're just kind of take this and put it across. Okay, so even now I just have one coat hanger poorly taped to the back. It's like barely on there. But you can even kind of see it's already getting the similar kind of like waves. There's like a crease here. And that's exactly what happened with the real flag. Okay, so I have my coat hanger. It's taped to the back. It looks kind of like this. Obviously this side isn't taped. It's fallen down a little bit. That's okay. It's fine. So, if you look, when I hold this up, it gets the same type of waves that the flag did when they stuck it on the moon. So, we just want a little quick comparison. Here's our flag. Here's our flag. Don't they kind of look the same? Cool, right? So that's why the flag kind of looks like this. From this little home experiment, it's pretty easy to see that the flag isn't waving. It's just the creases caused by the wires. So this pseudo-historical theory is debunked. So the next theory that we have to debunk is that the shadows don't appear parallel. Here's the thing. The hoaxers are right. The shadows don't appear parallel at all. But the key word here is appear. The human eyes can play tricks on you, so how things appear isn't always how things actually are. So to prove this, we're going to do our second experiment. We're going to do it outside, so let's go! Okay, so to follow along with this experiment, all you really need to do is go outside on a beautiful sunny day like I have. Here's the sun, nice and bright, beautiful, sunny, cool. Okay, so one of the things that moon landing hoaxers bring up are the shadows and how they don't look like they're parallel. And you know what? They're right. They don't look like they're parallel. But the weird thing about shadows is that they don't always look like how they're supposed to. And the human eye can also be deceiving. So right now, we're going to look at my shadow. So just by looking at my shadow, you might guess that I'm about 7 feet tall. No, I'm 5'1". But the length of the shadow looks extremely large. That's just a perspective problem. Now, the same way, it looks like I'm touching the shadow of my car. I'm not even close to touching it. That's just how it looks. So another point that moon landing hoaxers will bring up is that the shadows don't look parallel. But the thing is, looking parallel and being parallel are two completely different things. So when you're looking at train tracks, eventually they look like they converge, but they don't. It's just your perspective. In the distance, things seem closer together. So if I went into the middle of my street right now, making sure that no cars are coming and being very safe, and I look down, it looks like the road is getting smaller or less wide. But in reality, it's not. It's just perspective. And the same thing happens when you look at these pictures that the astronauts took. The lines don't look parallel, but it's just the way that you're looking at them. It's not that they actually aren't parallel. From this quick little experiment, I think it's fairly safe to say that we can debunk this pseudo-historical theory. So our final theory to debunk is that the moon landing couldn't have been real because none of the pictures the astronauts took have stars in them, and you'd expect that on the moon you'd be able to see the stars very well. So that's actually not true, and especially for the pictures taken. The key is in the camera exposure. So the moon has no air, which means that even in the daytime, the sky is going to be pitch black. So instead of the sunlight scattering about like it does here on Earth, it just hits the moon's surface and lights it up, kind of like a very large spotlight. So when setting the camera exposure, you're going to have it on the low setting, the same way you'd have it here on Earth during the daytime. And they did this to keep the moonlight from washing out the astronauts, and they want to actually be able to photograph the moon's surface. However, if you have this low exposure, it's very difficult to photograph objects such as stars. So the stars are there, you just can't see them in the photographs because with the low exposure setting, the stars don't have time to be recorded on film. And this brings me to my last experiment. So it's nighttime right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go outside, I'm going to take 2 pictures of the moon. I'm not going to take any pictures of the stars because in order to take pictures of the stars you need a professional expensive camera, which I don't have, so instead I'm going to take 2 pictures of the moon. The first one's going to be the low exposure that the astronauts would have used, and you're going to be able to see, even though it's a very bright object, it's going to come out very dark and barely visible, the same way that the stars did in the pictures the astronauts took. And then I'm going to do a high exposure, which is going, and then you're going to be able to see the moon very clearly. It's going to be very bright. So in order to do this, I'm going to take my camera, And I'm going to do, for the low exposure, I'm going to do a fast shutter speed, a low aperture, and a low ISO. And then I'm going to decrease shutter speed and increase aperture and increase ISO for the high exposure. Okay, so the picture you're seeing right now is the picture I took with low exposure. So the shutter speed is 1/640, the aperture is f/5.6, and the ISO is 100, and as you can see, it's very hard to see the moon. It's that little smudge that's on the screen right now. So that's what happens when you take pictures at low exposure. So the picture you're seeing right now is the one that was taken with high exposure. So to take this picture, I decreased the shutter speed to 1/60. I then increased the aperture to f/22, and then I also increased the ISO to 6,400. And as you can see, the moon's much more visible, it's much more bright. And this was not the setting that the astronauts would have used. They would have used the low one, which is why the stars didn't appear in the pictures. From this experiment, you can see why the stars wouldn't have appeared in the photos that the astronauts took. And therefore, we can fairly say that this pseudo-historical theory is debunked. Hopefully this video has proved to you that Americans did in fact land on the moon in 1969, or at the very least this video has encouraged you to do some further research on the subject. If you'd like to do some further research, I'll leave some links in the description below to some great scholarly sources. And if you enjoyed this video, follow my channel, smash that like button, comment below, tweet me at pdebunkers, I'll leave a link in the description. And the shout out this week is going to my roommate Emma for providing me with this beautiful high exposure photo of the moon. Thanks for watching.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Check ignition and may God's love be with you.